But either way, let's go on to, I guess, redemption of the main character. So I talked about the awakening, well, the evolutions of the other characters, but we didn't really talk about Makoto. Now, Makoto is not really a character. In a sense, you control him, you give responses through him. But his three personas that he has are very important for not only Jung, but Reich. So we have Orpheus, Thanatos, which we've talked about, and Messiah. So would you like to talk about the connection between Orpheus and Jesus?
So Orpheus is a figure from Greek mythology who is sort of the magician. Sorry, not the magician, the musician, right?
Yes.
Orpheus played a lyre. It's kind of like an early guitar-like instrument.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the myth is that he could charm people with the lyre, and he tried to get somebody out of Hades, the Greek underworld.
His
That's
girlfriend.
right.
Eurydice, I believe.
Yeah, Eurydice. That's right. She went down to the underworld. He tried to get her back by charming all the guards of the underworld with the music. But I forget what happened. Then he got stuck in the underworld himself.
I believe he gets stuck in the underworld. Yeah.
So now, one of the peculiar things. So let's move over in the Christian mythological setup where Christ is crucified. And the traditional doctrine is that he descended to the dead. You even say that in the creeds of the Catholic Church and so forth. He descended to the dead. On the third day, he rose again in accordance with the scriptures, etc., etc. So Christ went to the underworld. Now, what does this underworld mean when we demythologize it? That is, when we take it out of that narrative, story-like context. The underworld is the realm of the unconscious, where the dead past is, but the dead past is not quite dead. It's living. So the trip to the underworld in various mythological depictions is kind of like going back to a deeper level of reality that you have to go into in order to gain new life. And in the psychoanalytic process or in Jungian therapy, the ego must explore the unconscious to come in relationship with those hidden figures and powers. Right? So both Orpheus and Christ are figures that for the sake of life, they have to descend to the dead. Jung wrote a very obscure sermon as a young man. He called it like 7 Sermons to the Dead.
Or Septem Sermones ad Mortos.
Yes, Septem Sermones ad Mortuos. That is to say, 7 sermons to the dead. Because he got deeply involved in some kind of mystical, Gnostic, Hermetic texts that showed people kind of contacting and being contacted by unknown figures and their lives being enriched by them.
So should we also talk about the significance of Hermes and Hermetics as well?
Well, okay, so Hermes is the Greek god who carries messages. He's depicted with wings on his sandals, and he's like the messenger from Zeus, and he can go to the underworld. All right, so Hermes is like the part of the psyche that can travel to different layers, and so it's sort of useful to have a Hermes friend to keep you in touch with the many layers of being human. Now, there are also some texts from Egypt written in Greek at the time when Egypt had been conquered by Alexander the Great and all their intellectuals are writing in Greek. And this is some great literature. You can find it online. It's called the Hermetica. And I'll mention, and Jung was very into this stuff because one of the famous Hermetic treatises begins with a character like meditating, and all of a sudden a figure appears to him in his mind and says, I am Poimain, meaning the shepherd. I am Poimain. What would you like to hear or do? So you get this thing of like invisible figures popping out and offering to be helpful to you in your quest, whatever that is. And I gather that's where the video games pick up on the importance of these kind of almost like guiding figures, sort of spirit guides or what have you.
Yeah, these personas, exactly. And then what about the significance? So that's Junpei's persona, Hermes, and his evolution, Trismegistus.
Oh, okay, so Trismegistus is a Greek word that means thrice great, 3 times great. And that was just what we find in these ancient Hermes texts. They refer to Hermes as the god of memory and of writing, and they call him like 3 times great Hermes, just as kind of a ridiculous term of praise, like your royal highness or your imperial majesty. Thrice great Hermes will help you. It's just a way of sort of magnifying the importance of this whatever god guide figure that can take you places where you need to go.